Hi there, welcome to Grey Muzzle Geek for the week of January 13th, 2020, episode 36. I'm Dusty Red, and with me as always,
I'm Dusty White.
And let's get into this week's news. So, do you have plans for Valentine's Day this year? I mean, beyond your candlelit dinner and dining experience at White Castle. And if you're not planning on going to Alliance South Michigan's One Day event on the 15th, then maybe you should join us over in Brookfield, Wisconsin for the 7th annual FurSquared convention. As a special announcement, your Grey Muzzles will actually be hosting a panel. That's right, a live audience recording of the Grey Muzzle Geekery podcast on Saturday, February 15th at 4 p.m. in secondary events. What? So, yeah, we're going to be at FurSquared.
Yep.
We're going to be at FurSquared.
We're going to be at FurSquared.
We're going to be doing things. We're going to talk about stuff. We're going to be live and in person. And we're going to make fools of ourselves in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And by everybody, I mean like the 6 people in the audience. Like 3 of them are our Patreon.
I was going to say 3 of them are our friends. I'm actually I'm really looking forward to it. I think it will be a experience.
I mean, it should be good. So for anybody that's not familiar, when we kind of started this show right after FurSquared, really kind of got around that time.
Actually, I think right before.
Yeah, right before. Because this year, FurSquared's actually in the middle of in February.
Yes.
Usually it's like at the end of February. This year they pushed it on Valentine's weekend, which, I mean, nothing says love like furries. Woo.
Something like that.
But, so they're doing it earlier this month, which means, we are basically at a year ourselves now, come to think of it.
It will be that week. February 12th was our first episode.
Man. That's, and we're going to be doing a live. I didn't see that one coming, actually. I'm having doubts, regrets, everything. My life is flashing before my eyes.
Timeline of tragedy.
Timeline of tragedy. So we're going to be at the convention and be doing our show and have it recorded. And so hopefully we'll have it released the Wednesday after the con. We'll see. We might maybe take that week off and do the recovery. Our livers can only take so much. But it'll be good to just kind of go up there and do our thing and kind of get the name of the Grey Muzzles out there, knocking on people's room doors. Have you heard about the Grey Muzzles? Would you like to be a member of the Grey Muzzles? Your thetans are out of control. You must be a Grey Muzzle.
Wow, no.
Okay.
Did you want that on a donut bun? A question you would be asked at Dunkin' Donuts this week. It is the latest promotion for the plant-based protein Beyond Sausage with egg and cheese. To go one step further, it's being endorsed by none other than Snoop Dogg. Dunkin' is calling it the Beyond DOGG sandwich. Oh. Inspired by the rapper's love of glazed donuts. The Beyond Sausage sandwich have sold more than twice what was projected, along with Dunkin' Donuts and Burger King's success with the Impossible Burger. Barclays predicts the alternative meat sector could reach expected to reach $140 billion in sales over the next decade. Any thoughts about the Impossible meat? I
mean, it's Snoop Dogg. Who knows how he's eating that thing? Everything's going to taste good when you're stoned out of your mind like that. But I mean, a lot of the plant-based foods have really kind of gotten better and taste pretty good. I mean, we waited in line at a Burger King
for Michigan, one of our friends,
which turned into about a poop show to say the least. But no, I mean, I'm not one of these like, oh, plant-based, blah blah blah, negative. Like, cool, it's awesome, it's available, and it tastes good. I'm very curious to see what the price tag is going to be, because that's always the problem, as we've learned with eating healthy and doing this other stuff. It's really freaking expensive. So what's the average? Is the average person going to spend $7.50 on a, Beyond Sausage, Dunkin' Donut pile of food? I don't see that.
Yeah.
It still could be good. I guarantee it could be tasty, but I don't know. What do you think?
I'm interested to see how they can continue to improve it. I mean, it's basically still junk food, but for vegans.
Because vegans deserve to eat crappy too.
Well, I mean, yeah, kind of. So you've got the glazed donut, which ironically the article also talked about they're trying to do a pop-up merchandise store where they'll sell Snoop Dogg endorsed shirts saying glazed for days. But
there's so many things that could go wrong with that. There's so many things that could just go wrong with that oh no.
I think Dunkin's actually done a really good job to kind of rebrand themselves as something that is got some longevity or continue to have longevity.
Well, I mean, Dunkin' still appeals to the everyday guy.
Right.
Like Starbucks.
It's not the Starbucks.
Starbucks is your bougie coffee. Your Caribou's like your bougie suburb coffee because you're only going to find them at a couple malls and a Hy-Vee or something.
Right.
So you're going to find Dunkin' is going to be the everyman, everyday thing, which makes sense to have this impossible thing to appeal to kind of the everyday type person.
Yeah.
We'll see how many of them are going to... I don't know, it'd be interesting. I'm very curious to see. Like, I can see that hipster-ish or that, like, living in the city, making good money and eating there, like, kind of to go in a hurry, being a decent substitute for eating meat. But at the same time, like, at what point do you have the irony of going, I'm going to be conscientious, I'm going to be good, and I'm gonna treat my body like the temple that it is, and I'm gonna put a plant-based protein into my system. Never mind that the delivery method's gonna be on a super sugary glazed donut and other nonsense, but the meat is not actually meat.
Right.
So I mean, it's kind of one of those. But it's obviously riding the trend. Mm-hmm. It's riding that whole everybody thinks that the Impossible Meat's fantastic, which for whatever it is, it's good. If you can make it more affordable, that'd be fantastic.
I think it's interesting to see how, again, the meat market will, or the non-meat market is going to expand in the next 10 or so years.
Well, it's already growing meat in petri dishes and stuff. It's going beyond like...
jelly chicken.
I mean, if it turns out to be affordable.
Right.
Like, would you eat... Like, this meat is grown in a dish, and obviously it's not going to look like an actual steak. It'll probably be more like a ground beef type or even a tofu type consistency.
Right.
But if it's got the protein and it doesn't taste bad, why not?
Agreed.
Never mind the fact that your meat that actually be kind of nice now that I think about it. Meat grown in a petri dish will actually be meat with a view.
Next.
So, thanks to the unprecedented renaissance that is Dungeons & Dragons, more people are picking up the game to the point of finding it and starter kits at big box stores that Wizards of the Coast now offers the SRD, or System Reference Document, that contains just about everything one needs to play a basic version of Dungeons & Dragons. Now, however, it's really not intended to be just a starter set. Wizards make the SRD available under the Open Gaming License, OLG, in order to provide a template for other companies to publish games and supplements using the D&D rule set. One of these features is that whatever you make with it, it isn't allowed to exist inside the canonical worlds that it currently exists, but become more or less fanfic that you as a player can use. Here's the genius part, though. The primary developers also use this as kind of a writing room, so to speak. They call the Guild Adepts, where they use a lot of the stories that are presented to this database and use them for potential writers for Wizards of the Coast. So if you actually have the chops to write good modules or good characters or good supplements to D&D under the Open Gaming License, they actually, kind of like a bullpen, pull you up to be kind of an
regular writer
or a regular writer for Wizards of the Coast, and actually could get paid by Wizards for these modules and such. So it is more or less a form of downloadable content, a little bit of DLC for tabletopping.
I mean, it's gaming expanding. It's gaming getting up to date. As much as people want to stick with gaming staying true or original or tarnished tabletopping, like without cell phones and stuff like that. It's almost getting so much easier to do it with a laptop or something with advancements like a spell sheet that you can keep on your cell phone or stuff like that.
When I was doing the Dungeons and Dragons, we had, I was playing a bard, I was a caster, and I just had all of the spell sheets on my cell phone. I had it opened up next to me, and whenever I wanted to cast something, I was able to click on it and have everything set up immediately, without having to go flipping through the pages and stuff.
Right.
Obviously, it's up to the user to not be distracted by the phone. I know some people have a tendency of getting their nose buried into it, and they just kind of get lost in their phone for a bit and don't pay attention. It happens. But I think as a supplement, where you could download apps to generate characters and download dice rollers, which that's where I'm definitely Grey Muzzle. I have to have the weight of the dice. I have
There's something about the actual...
The sound of it, the dice rolling. Oh, it's so good. But why not? I mean, why not use the technology that we have? I mean, I've definitely used systems that have people from across the world play D&D together. Our very own friends at Loaded Dice Adventures use systems that allow people to view maps and have character sheets on hand and stuff. So it only makes sense to have full modules easily searched and downloaded at the whims of whatever user. So, and the DMs as well.
True. Google Maps is helping family members say goodbye. Well, sort of. Hundreds of people are finding pictures of their past loved ones on Google Maps Street View. Leslie Barraza tells CNN that she wasn't expecting to see an image of her past grandfather when she Googled her childhood farm, but sure enough, there he was in the yard working when the Google Street car must have driven by. Barraza's tweet went viral as more people flocked to check their own street views. Google even recognized the tweet and thanked her for sharing. Thoughts?
I mean, if you want your last memories of a loved one to be via surveillance van, sure. I mean, it's interesting. It's neat because obviously the Google photo van that goes by, the surveillance van, has also taken some interesting photos of people falling and of like a cat walking across the street, but it's like panoramic over several photos, so it's like the longest cat ever. There's definitely some photos of just weird and unique things that you find in streets and stuff. So why not? I mean, why? Like, are any of us really surprised that Google has a photo of not only... I'm very curious of if Google has any photos of like active murders or active like somebody getting robbed or like, oh, there's Grandpa falling off the ladder. That was his last photo before he actually killed himself. Like,
ooh. Well, I know in the article itself it talks about the shock of seeing your past one, just kind of stumbling on it, but it ultimately being a warm, fuzzy feeling of being able to see that person after months, if not years, of them being passed away. Even to the point of one person said they remember having to explain to Grandma what the Google car was as it drove by and she waved. So
that photo might exist of Grandma in the window. Just, and again, it's not surprising. It's really cool. I'm very curious to see if they'll do anything about it or any weird, like, flagging for old people or just hang on to it and wait 20 years and who knows, it's going to be dead by then.
Well, I know with Google saying, tweeting thanks for the response, it's a cool thing. It's probably still going to be out there. And again, it's something that only a select few I guess I shouldn't say select few, but only a handful of individuals would experience.
Sure.
If they know, every Sunday my grandfather sat out on the porch and
butt naked with an iced tea and a Google van drives by.
Right. So again, it almost like a real world hidden Easter egg.
Ooh.
Is finding
achievement unlocked. Grandma doing Grandpa.
Aw, why you gotta ruin everything?
Have ya met me? So that ends this week's news.
News.
And let's immediately go right into this week's Grey Muzzle Game Masters.
Grey Muzzle Game Masters. This week's Grey Muzzle Game Masters is Monster of the Week, a standalone action horror RPG for around 3 to 5 people. Hunt high school beasties a la Buffy the Vampire Slayer, travel the country hunting baddies like Supernatural, or head up a government investigation like Mulder and Scully.
Monster of the Week is run with the Powered by the Apocalypse game system, developed by Mugway and Vincent Baker. Monster of the Week was designed by Michael Sands and Steve Hickey in 2012. The production company for this indie award-winning runner-up game is Evil Hat Productions.
So tell me about our Monster of the Week excursions.
Well, we have one of our friends from Alliance, South Michigan, who's been our keeper, I think is the term that they use for the game master, the dungeon master, is their storyteller, their keeper. And so he's a bit experienced when it comes to this. So it helps in our experiences for playing this game that he's really locked into this kind of genre. Obviously, the genre's got that horror trope vibe going on.
Right. Tropes all over the place.
And it leans heavy into going, it's a trope. Everything's tropish. You're made to be tropish. How tropish is this game? Well, let's look at some of the characters that were rolling through our experiences. So tell us about your character. Who'd you play? What'd you play?
I switched it up, actually, from the first time we played and started a character that's called In Exile. And it's essentially fish out of water, fish out of time, Viking, barbarian, badass fighter.
So what kind of trope is this playing then? Because you mentioned a character from
almost
a
like Highlander. I feel like it's got a Highlander vibe, like you're being plucked out of time to fulfill.
Highlander was around for a while though. Highlander didn't just get pulled out of time. He aged through the years.
Oh well, I guess that's true.
You're kind of more like, was it from Mighty Max? What was it?
Virgil? No, Virgil.
Virgil was the
owl.
He's the fowl.
Norman the Barbarian. I think we've talked about this before. I'm very Normish.
Norm-esque?
No, definitely not normal. So I always base it off of my favorite drink. My favorite name, probably, if I could rename myself, I would. Allagash. And she's just kind of brute force with a little bit of sass, and being followed by her chosen, the divine, my Matilda. Matilda. I almost called her Maddie, but that's the other one. I really enjoy playing this character. She's just kind of fun, and at the end of the day, if brute force isn't what you need, I need somebody else to do it for me.
And a lot of your stuff is kind of physical hand-to-hand type combat and stuff. And the way the game kind of allows itself is it's interesting that like combat isn't always the answer.
Right.
Very much not, and I'm going to get some flack, I'm sure, but like not D&D-ish, where D&D is clearly made to be a combat type game. Even like some vampire stuff. It has an emphasis on the combat elements to make it clearly an advantage and disadvantage.
Right.
Whereas with this game, like even as your big, barbarian-esque self will still take damage because of the way the game system kind of says, hey, if you're going to get into combat, expect to take damage too.
Right.
Now, obviously, you have mitigating abilities that reduce the number of damage you take to the point of sometimes just 0.
Right. You're basically exchanging blows sometimes.
So let's look at some of the emphasis on tropes, because I am playing Jonathan Johnson, also known as Johnny Boom, who is...
Boomer.
Oh, 10-4 dinosaur. So we have a character, or a character I play is basically an Adam Savage type.
Right.
He is his class, not class, I guess, but is a action.
I think it is.
I forgot that they have a specific term for it.
Yeah.
But he is what they call an action scientist. And to give you an idea of what an action scientist is, you would be looking at Adam Savage, the Ghostbusters, who did we say earlier, kind of talking about, of the MacGyver?
Yeah,
would be
very much MacGyver.
Would be an action scientist. He's got an ability called science, and I look to the keeper and say, I want to make a MacGuffin. And then the keeper goes, okay, well, this MacGuffin is going to take either time or resources or vast amounts of power or whatever. And it's as simple as, okay, and I make the MacGuffin.
Right.
So everything has that feel to it like a sitcom, to the point of the keeper even writing it like a sitcom. We're kind of talking off air a little bit of, there's like kind of scenes put into play.
The opening, it seems to always start with a cold opening, which if you've ever watched a Buffy the Vampire Slayer or a CSI or some type of other tropish show, I mean, you've all seen them. It always starts with the, like you said, the of the theme cutting away, and you now see your players and their character names, and it's beat for beat. So you almost have 6 or 7 scenes or 6 or 7 things planned out, and that's really all you need to do as the keeper. You just got to get them to each one of the scenes. And
the game itself is really easy to learn. Yeah. It's really easy to play. The rules themselves take no more than a few minutes. You need what? 2d6 is for a majority of your rolls.
Yeah.
Is your abilities. And a lot of the game is kind of, well, it's collaborative storytelling.
Yep.
It's not a you versus the dungeon master, or I don't even say you against monsters. Obviously, you're
still fighting monsters.
You're still fighting monsters, or you're fighting this, TV tropish type situation. But excuse me, you're like, relay to me, like, what is your experience of using this kind of dice system, or this kind of this collaborative storytelling system, even for character creation?
I really like the part of, I think that's probably, now playing it a handful of times, the character creation and the making your party is super collaborative. We go around and basically choose what, they give you prompts, almost kind of like Mad Lib style, of this is how you meet. Let them tell you what happened. And it's just going back and forth and saying, well, I would have done this as my character 4 or 5 years ago, since I've already existed in the world.
Sure.
I saved your character from a vampire.
And I was about to say, how did, like, to give everyone an example of, like, it's literally on your character sheet saying, go around the table, pick the other players, and assign them, of the list that's already on there, a role in your life. And one of the roles for me, so you and I were sitting across the table, and one of the roles for me was pick another character or pick another person at the table, and they were there when you went from just a scientist to an action scientist. So at what made my character go from just doing what he does, and again, I played an Adam Savage type, so I was basically a Mythbuster.
Right.
And I turned around and went, okay, so my character knows Allagash, this hulking brute of a barbarian from the Viking era. Like, how did we come to meet? Well, I did a myth busting on vampires and found out, nope, they're real. And because you
I happen to know they're real and was there as your bodyguard, air quote, I protected you from being killed by one. And I had to kind of explain what happened. So it really, the character creation is probably one of my favorite part of the game creation, I guess. That it's supposed to be 3 to 5 hour long, 2 to 3 hours, 3 to 5, how, it varies, but it's not supposed to be, hey, this 8-hour campaign session, which for me, and kind of being honest, I love tabletopping, but I get antsy. I get, like, after a while, it's like, okay, I've been sitting
You're
down.
a doodler.
I am a doodler. I happen to doodle on my character sheet or pieces of paper. It's just something I've always done since I started tabletopping. It's just, I have to keep something active, and as much as the DM can be really great or the keeper can be fantastic and really world immersing, I still after a while start to be like, okay, let's do something different. Let's do something other than this.
Well, the thing about this game in particular that, and you keyed in on it really good, is the fact that it is, even in its design, very TV story-like. It is, every story is ancillary.
Right.
But still kind of a greater story going on. Like, it definitely feels like a season-long story is happening, but it's still happening in episodes.
Right.
Like, we deal with the thing, we're not dealing with the same bad guy for the last, 20 sessions, or dealing with this overly crazy world of this dragon runs everything, this and this. And that may be something that is in the background. That may be a end of season reveal of, holy crap, this guy is the big bad guy we have to deal with in season 2 or something.
Right.
But it does feel very small. I mean, in our experiences, what did we had to do so far? We had to deal with a
possession.
A kid that possessed a bunch of
Toys.
McDonald's toys.
Right.
And the fact that our storyteller is from Chicago and using a lot of Chicago locations in Google Maps and using meta information that we all know. So it's like, hey, you're on the north side of the city doing this. Like, okay, I'm familiar with the neighborhood. This is cool. I'm going to use the trains. I'm going to use the buses. I know the buses stop at 2:30 in the morning, so
right.
Looks like we're going to hoof it. But it has this very feel of, so far the 2 games that we played, it had a very clear intro. This is the thing that happened. Had our characters come together and figure some stuff out. Run into a couple encounters. Finish that session. And that's it. Like, that episode, like a regular TV show, is done. And then, there's a bigger overarching story. But it's still brought down in bite-sized pieces. That, and this goes back to a previous conversation we had of, we like shorter commitment type games. We don't have 12 hours anymore. We're adults. We're working adults. We don't have full
right.
20-hour weekends to be like, you know what I'm going to just do? I'm just going to sit here and play this game. Like, we do that LARPing enough.
Yeah. No, that's legit.
So, anything in particular about this rule set or the games or our storyteller's style that, like, really grab at you?
As a system, I really like it. It's simple, easy to understand. If you've ever rolled dice before, all your rules are on one sheet of paper, basically your character sheet. You're not flipping through, obviously from our news article, you're not having to have an app up. You're not having to do anything like that. Everything that you need is right in front of you, two D6, and you are ready to go. Then it's really just your imagination. And some of us have, like, I feel it tends more towards those type of players that are imaginative, that you can think up things on your feet, you think up problems outside of the box, that kind of thing, versus a rules lawyer. A rules lawyer may not like this game. I haven't played with any of those types of people in this type of world yet, but I wouldn't imagine a rules lawyer being somebody that maybe they want things more spelled out. They want to know the confines of the game. I don't know. What would you think about that?
I actually agree wholeheartedly. I think that the game itself really does play, as per mentioned, in a collaborative storytelling way. Where, I mean, spoilers. One of the things that we played was we had to rescue the Sandman.
Right.
Like, there was this red bison energy drink that was going around, and like people were kind of getting addicted, but there was sand, like piles of sand everywhere, and it's too much to get into. But one of the things that we encountered, like, there was a piano at a bar, and it started playing creepy music, like bedtime music, and like music notes. appeared in the air, and they started to by us and make our guys fall asleep. I, as the action scientist, was like, okay, well, I know about noise canceling devices and noise canceling effects. Again, me as a electrical savvy guy kind of has an idea of how sound works and stuff. So I was like, all right, well, my action scientist would know something like this clearly. Like, he would know how sound works. So using my ability of just literally in bold caps lock exclamation point, science! Like, ran up to the jukebox, and I like looked at our storyteller or our keeper and was like, I want to like rig up the jukebox to emit a reverse sound wave to basically cancel out the music notes that are there. And he's like, all right, it's going to take some time to do it, but roll. So a lot of it is like, convince me how you could do this. And you don't have to get into the intricacies. I don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to pull out a soldering iron and wire the boards and do this. That's all, again, MacGuffin. It's MacGyver type stuff.
It's the musical montage that you would see as the show as you were doing it.
Yeah, it would be like it'd pan over to me. I kind of burn my fingers and like, and then it pans over to the party, like trying to save each other and dodge out of the way. And then it pans back over to my guy, and he's like, got his one eye closed and his tongue hanging out from the side. He's like twisting two wires together, and then it pans over, and then all of a sudden it pans back, and like the jukebox is completely disassembled, and a big giant speaker is there, and then this woo sound wave hits. Like, that's how the game kind of supposed to go. It's tell me a story.
It doesn't take you 6 pages and 19 different spell descriptions
and
that you have to look it up.
And you have to roll 15 times to do this. It is, and that's the thing, because I think I was doing like I guess as rules lawyery as I could be, and as like break down the game as much as possible, you get 2d6. If you're particularly skilled in an ability, you'll get +2 to your roll. Generally, you're getting +1 or +0. If you suck at it, you get -1 to your roll. A success is what? 7, 8, and 9?
Yeah, usually 7+, and then you get bonuses after 9.
Like 7, 8, 9 is you succeed, but something's kind of hinky.
Right.
You stab the guy, but he stabbed you back. Or you make the thing work, but it bust your eardrums or something. Like
you get addicted to red bison.
You get addicted to red bison. So it has that ability in the game where it says, hey, roll, cool. If you get a 7, 8, 9, you succeed. If you get a 10, 11, 12, you really succeed. Which means you're looking at a 45% failure rate for just about everything.
But, and the same part is, as soon as you fail those things, you get an experience point. And that's your leveling. And
that's what makes the game really interesting, is that the only way to level up is to fail.
Is to do stuff you're not good at, or even have a
really
negative
a life lesson here, isn't it? I'm sensing a life lesson for everybody here. The only way to level up in life is do things you're not good at.
I mean, pretty self-explanatory right there.
So it is currently one of my favorite tabletop games, hands down. I think it does a fantastic job on the collaborative storytelling aspect, especially when you're dealing with other creative people who, again, we surround ourselves with very creative people, so it's nice to be able to throw these ideas around. And, one of our friends is playing a luchador, and we had another guy basically playing Ash from Evil Dead.
Yep.
Or Army of Darkness. A lot of people know him, but we know him from Evil Dead, but from Army of Darkness. We have a leprechaun in our party. We have basically a dryad. We have a YouTube star.
Right.
Like, we have all these people that come up with these characters based on these
sheets.
These stereotypes, basically.
These tropes.
And how do they affect the world and affect the game? I mean, one of my favorites is still the meddling kid. I haven't played it, but I love hearing stories. Is one of the meddling kids' like superpowers is at any point in time there could be a werewolf in the street and he's just murdering people left and right, and a meddling kid could walk up to the werewolf and be like, it's not really a werewolf, and if you roll high enough, it's Farmer Bob from down the block, and he's trying to scare everybody to make a roller coaster in the backyard. Like, and it causes the keeper, the storyteller, to go, all right, this is a thing now. This is how we're doing. This is how the story is being told.
Right.
So it does take a lot. So for anybody that's interested in playing this game, It takes a little bit of flexibility for sure. It takes a bit of imagination, and to a degree, it takes a level of not being married to whatever you write.
Right.
Because chances are your players are going to F it up.
So I would give it 7 out of 10 whiskers.
I would probably say the same. I'll give it 7 out of 10 as well. It is definitely one of my favorite games. It's a quick game. I'm looking forward to actually getting into the storytelling side of it. I want to get a copy of the book, and kind of run some smaller stuff.
I do too, actually.
For conventions or for whatnot, and I think it'll be easy enough to integrated characters back and forth to...
I secretly hate you.
Secretly?
No.
All right. But it allows us to be able to, like, I could run a game and have my guys still know your guys, and, like, even if we took turns, like, being storyteller, like, we'd still be able to roll our characters together. That'd be a lot of fun. So, yeah, I mean, Monster of the Week, it's not a terribly expensive game. It's not a complicated game at all.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, highly recommend it.
All right, so that's our review for Monster of the Week.
Grey Muzzle Game Masters. ANTP Fox vs. Fox recap.
Fox noises!
So, to give some of our listeners a back history about how we ended up in this weird kind of one-off reality podcast competition.
The twisted mind of Brian Ibbott.
Because those words totally go together. I have been a fan of a series or a couple of different types of podcasts over the last year. Again, I've been an avid podcast listener for 10 plus years at this point. And a podcast that I really like is or I guess I shouldn't say podcast, but a network of podcasts that I really like is Frog Pants Network. And they've got just a variety of different kinds of podcasts on it. One of them being a morning show that's hosted by Brian Ibbott and Scott Johnson. Mm-hmm. And it's just a really fun, segmented, like, two people very similar to our situation that are friends, have known each other for a while, have a great chemistry. So they record Monday through Thursday, basically in the morning, like a morning talk show. But it's just it's a daily podcast show. Well, one of the hosts is Brian Ibbott, and Brian Ibbott is a reality television connoisseur, and out of his weird mind came an idea to kickstart a podcast, basically taking amateur podcasters and pitting them up against each other, seeing how they can be groomed to be better podcasters. And I remember hearing about it before we even started doing our show, the first season, and kind of thinking, oh, that's cool. And then I didn't listen to it at the time just because, again, I tend to cringe towards people that start podcasts and sound like they're in big tin cans.
Well, we joke about that too, right away. It's like one of my points of pride when we started this show was...
Gotta make the audio sound good.
The audio has to sound good. And that's maybe my science brain, and that's my, my perfectionist kind of kicking in. But regardless of whatever we're talking about, it needs to sound good. Because, again, anybody listening to the most pertinent information in the world, but it's coming through a Campbell's soup can, they're going to turn it off.
Exactly. So I didn't really listen to the first season, but after... 6 months of us doing this show, 6 or 7 months doing Grey Muzzle. So in February, and we started in, I came up with the idea in June because the new season 2 was coming out. Please send your submissions to blah. And I remember coming over to Gabe's and going, hey, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And I put in the submission, and I guess my dumb brain didn't read the whole thing.
So let's start that.
Okay.
That is the kickoff point of our tell-all of America's Next Top Podcaster of we didn't know it was a singles competition, correct?
I went in thinking for season 2, maybe they did something different or something along the lines of, hey, just apply and send us one of your favorite episodes of your podcast. So I filled out the submission form, read it like, oh, we need to both submit it so that you don't have like, say you do a group podcast and you've got one person that's like, I'm going to try for it, and then everybody's stuck doing it. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, hey, I submitted it. I chose this episode as our example. You need to fill out one too to basically give consent that you also are behind submitting it.
With us being a team.
Right.
Okay, continue.
Thinking we were going to be a single podcast representing Grey Muzzle.
Competing against 11 other podcasts.
So, as Red is very openly calling me out here, I didn't understand that it would be a individual type scenario. So fast forward several weeks, if not, 2 months almost?
Well, when we submitted it, we then were like, okay, we're not sure if we're going to get in, but maybe we should, listen to season 1 a little bit.
No.
We started listening to season 1 before we even got word.
No, after we got word. Because I didn't even think it would, I had almost forgotten about it. And then we got the email that said, hey, you've been chosen.
Okay.
I remember it distinctly. Because, again, my life had kind of turned upside down.
True.
Between submitting the submission for us to be considered, again, as a podcast, not individual, as a duo.
As Grey Muzzle Geekery versus
the
11
world.
Against the world. I like that. Ooh. 2 foxes making noises in the apartment.
So we heard word. We have obviously greymuzzlegeekery@gmail.com as our email, and we both used it
and we didn't want to use personal emails and stuff because we're like, hey, if our podcast is going to be submitted for this contest, we're just gonna use the podcast email.
Right.
Makes sense, right? Like if you got your business email and you're doing a business, then you would BoJack called that, which is coming out real soon. BoJack, doing a business, and you're gonna use your business email for it. Cool.
Right.
Here you go. Well,
so I remember it distinctly. I think it was the Wednesday before an event. So we had the Friday drive to, Alliance South Michigan, and we got an email and says, you've been picked. We listened to your submission, and we would like to have you be part of season 2 of American Next Top Podcaster. And it kind of gave you the rundown of what would be needed, your time investment, what expectations to expect.
Allow myself to introduce myself. But yeah, it was definitely a rundown email of, hey, you need to be available every Monday at X o'clock. You need to be able to do
everything's
this.
Mountain Time.
Everything's Mountain Time because, I don't know, he's lonely and mountains mean something.
I was going to say, if you're going to be by the 2 producers, basically, the 2 people that are running the show are in Mountain Time.
Even Central Time Zone guy goes, everything's pretty much Eastern Time Zone.
So we get the email, and we start driving towards our event, and we were like, let's throw on season 1. Let's listen to what the expectations are.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see
now.
what our kind of where they were going with it.
Right.
And we listened to episode 1.
So before we get there,
okay,
you already have a little bit of an idea, though. Because if I'm not mistaken, you at least know of the Frog Pants Network.
Yeah.
You know of Brian Ibbott. You know of the judges.
Yeah, I know of the 3 judges they had for season 1. 2 of them did return for season 2.
But you knew Scott Johnson.
Yep, and jury.
You knew Justin Robert Young.
Yep.
I refuse to call him jury. He's not that cool. Sorry. So
you can already tell where this recap, entire series of recaps
I have a feeling one
go.
of us is going to be on the salty side, and one of us is going to be the life is grandiose and fantastic and rainbows and unicorns. But you knew who these people were.
Yeah.
You're familiar with their work. You're familiar with their body of work.
I'm familiar with why they were chosen as judges.
100%. And I could see that in hindsight, clearly.
So we listened to episode 1. And episode 1 of season 1 was a lot of, this is this person, brief little recording bio of what got them into podcasting, what they're actually podcasting on. And we're noticing as we're listening that these are all individual people.
Uh-huh.
And I remember having you pause it, and then I started very quickly going through emails and the submission form and going, oh no, as I realized that it was an individual competition.
Mm-hmm. But what made it confusing was that our email response was,
you've been chosen.
Yeah, it's very a form letter of, congratulations, you've been chosen. Here's what you need to do. Here's your expectations. And then you went, well, one of us is chosen. What do? And I'm obviously doing 90 miles an hour down 94 going, email them and figure out what's going on.
So it's Friday afternoon, and I'm emailing the basically reply all to Brian Ibbott and Hammond.
Yep.
And was... oopsies, both Red and I have submitted under this email which one what do, basically.
Yeah, it was congratulations, you're on, and then you're just like, right, which one?
And Hammond did respond with probably within the hour and said, I have to talk to Brian. He is gone for the weekend. It happened to be his birthday weekend, and he was in Vegas. But he was just like, well, I'm going to talk to Brian. Be back with you shortly.
Yeah, we goofed BRB AFK. That's what that was.
So I would say 2-3 days later, obviously enough time to get back from Vegas and do whatever recouping that you may do from that type of birthday trip.
Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
And get an email back from Brian, I believe, at the time. And it said, this time around, we're choosing Kristen.
Which I was kind of secretly like, oh, thank God. A little nervous on the sense of having listened to some of the stuff on the way. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know if I could do this because it's a group project and they want to take these 12 people and put them individually, not so much individually, but put them into groups. And as I have said before, on the show, here, wherever in life, you can catch me on the street and just be like, hey, Red, what do you think about group projects? I'm like, hate them, bye, stranger, and leave. Don't do group projects.
So I secretly in my brain went, oh no, that means up until that point I had never done any editing. Every part of our episodes are I'm kind of here just the voice of the co-host.
You're the voice of reason.
Sometimes. I'm just here recording and not doing some of the back end stuff.
You're the pretty face on a podcast.
Right, exactly. Go, woo! Woo! So I'm doing the, oh no, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have the equipment. I don't have this. Start running through my brain going, again, recently had just flipped my life upside down and was going, well, if it's not the two of us, I don't know if I can do this. And this is, again, just secretly on my end of things. So getting that
I'm over here like cheering you on. I'm just like, all right, cool. Yeah, let me know what you need to do. I can help you out from the sideline. Like, you got this.
Right.
Deuces.
So, not gonna lie, kind of secretly enjoyed the next day getting another email going, whoops, on their part, we looked further down the list and Gabe's also being chosen. If you two are okay going head to head, we'd like to have you both.
And it was at that point I went, yeah, I'm totally okay with it. And then the record scratching noise, and then Morgan Freeman go, and in fact, he wasn't okay with it.
So we still had a few weeks to go because they wanted to start shortly after Labor Day. Mm-hmm. And the whole scenario of it was we're going to start recording after Labor Day, but the episode wouldn't go live for, 2 weeks?
Yeah, it was like a 2-week grace period.
Right.
Between recording, because obviously the staff at ANTP needed to go through all the, literal hours of audio and put together a show.
Right. So we couldn't really talk about it because obviously he also needed to inform people that did submit that they didn't go and all this other stuff. So we couldn't really talk about it. All the while, kind of being one of the things I didn't like about the competition was not really being able to promote ourselves. And really, because there was such a level of don't spoil it, and I wouldn't ever want to be that type of person and be like, oh, this was blah, 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 and so got voted off or anything like that. So I think looking back on it with a little bit of a week's of, review now, that was probably one of my bigger complaints. But we got into it. Once they announced, or once they had basically gotten everybody's okay that they could do it and that they were signed up for it, they introduced us into our Discord.
Well, it was weird too because immediately we get all of us into Discord, and again, I'm still new to Discord. I was
too. We'd only done it for our show, and
I don't even know if our show was active yet, or was it?
Yeah, we had it.
Okay,
but Alliance South Michigan was really all we had done with Discord.
And I used it a couple times for Pokemon Go and some other social games.
Right.
But I was still a novice to Discord, so they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna run everything through Discord. We're gonna do this and this," and I'm just like, oh, now I'm out of my comfort zone for sure. What was originally just us messing around in my apartment and just spewing nonsense. For the most part, it's nonsense. It's class. Let's look at the big picture here. It is us talking about LARPy. It's us talking about furries. It's us talking about
games and geekery.
Games and just kind of nostalgia.
Yeah.
Turned into hey, congratulations, you're on a national show. Global show, technically. Yeah, it's America's Next Top Podcaster, but season 1's had a person from Australia.
Yep.
So, it turned into this large-scale thing that I felt we were woefully unprepared for, but at the same time, excitedly unprepared for. Hindsight's 2020.
Right.
So is this year, but hindsight's 2020.
Zing.
Dad joke. So it was a case of, you know what? And even listening to season 1 afterwards, after we got submitted, we were hammering down on season 1 now, listening as much as possible. Got the idea of some of these people are 2 years, 3 years in their podcasting stuff, 100 episodes, or the common thread that we seen was oh, we did a show, and then canceled the show, or killed the show, and then made another show, and then a third show or something, where you and I were we've been at this for 5 months, this is our first show, we hope it doesn't die. So, but we're seeing that theme of these people were doing multiple shows, or they're kind of guests on each other's show and stuff. So it was very insular group that I'm seeing from an outside perspective. And again,
Right.
we'll go back for a second too on podcasting experience. Like, you listen to a lot of podcasts. You're familiar with Frog Pants Network.
Different genres, different types
Like,
of...
what's your three? Like, your top three podcasts?
top
Or
three
five, even.
top three podcasts, I would say, only because of my love for true crime, is My Favorite Murder.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know.
Okay.
And probably the one that I've listened to the longest would be Film Sack, which is a Frog Pants show. And it's just all different types of, and I've branched out into nonfiction, I've branched out into biographies, I've branched out to fiction and sci-fi horror. It's been a lot, and I just like listening to podcasts.
And that only further emphasizes my point of you are very familiar with the landscape. So while you didn't have the technical knowledge, you still knew what a good podcast sounded like. You still knew when and where a sound cue should be, when you have too many whooshes, when you have you had an idea how a podcast works.
Right.
My podcast experience was some fantasy football podcasts, because I'm a competitive asshole and we play for money at work. So what's the easiest way to learn about some? I mean, it's athletic cosplay.
Yeah.
So let's how do we learn about athletic D&D? Other nerds telling me about the average run yards on an outdoor stadium on natural grass, and then listen to a variety of comedians, which is less of a podcast and is more of a brain-dropping location.
Right.
It's where a lot of comedians, some of my favorites would be Christopher Titus, Bill Burr, Chris D'Elia. Like, a lot of these guys
Would get in front of a mic and just...
And there's kind of solo acts. I know Titus has his wife with them too. And she's and I don't want to, I gotta make sure, Bombshell is not this is just his wife. Like, she is a stand-up
comedian herself.
Yeah, she's a stand-up comedian in her own right. And very funny at that. So he's maybe the outlier. But even then, it's still guys talking to themselves to the mic, to a mic. And in some cases, using it for future material.
Right.
Using so that's my idea of a podcast. And so fundamentally speaking, your concept of a podcast was informative. Some NPR level of knowledge. Some goofing around and talking about real life things. And to a degree, a level of depth and complexity and real life that's there. Whereas I'm listening to podcasts for fantasy football and dick and fart jokes. So our experiences are
vastly different.
Way different. And now we come to a situation where, hey, we're competing. And so you've got this wealth of knowledge and this world experience of, oh yeah, okay, here's some cool podcasts and this and this. And I'm just like, how many times can I say f- before I get kicked off air?
So we get thrown into this Discord, and people's personalities are starting to come out. And and I'll be honest, it throws back to my I'll find you because you owe the government money days of career choices. I Googled some of these people. I wanted to know.
Oh, you didn't just Google some of these people. You deep dive. I'm pretty sure Brian Ibbott's credit history at this point.
I wanted to know kind of what I was going up. If it was really going to be like this reality type world, which I dabbled in reality television when it was popular, or I guess I shouldn't say when it was popular because it still is, but when it first was new. I was a Survivor fan, didn't get into Big Brother or anything like that, and The Bachelor. But the things that I learned from Real World or Road Rules is it's competitive. You got to kind of have a drive to be there because you're there for a reason. You're there to win something at the end. And may it be bragging rights or whatever have you, you're still there to compete. It's still a competition. So I did some digging and I found out some, what the old podcast, like some of the old podcasting that they did or some of their experience. Because again, you've got a podcast. You've got to have it out there. You've got to have it, some Google information.
You got to show your butt.
Yeah. You got to show your data points out there is what you were doing or who you are or what you follow. And again, getting thrown into the Discord, I knew some of that going in, and just some personalities started to kind of rise to the top. And I think that's kind of where we'll leave it this week. What do you think?
Yeah, because as soon as we got into the Discord and started to... You're doing your research via behind the scenes, I started kind of poking on the Discord on some of those who were being a little bit more vocal. Some people in particular weren't there to be friends and to win it all. And some people were going through life situations and life changes themselves. And then some people were just dealing with crippling bouts of depression. But I think it's a point to leave from there, and we'll go into our next version of Fox versus Fox recap, the pick of teams on America's Next Top Podcaster. So I think that'll leave us here for this week's show, and as always, just remember, folks, that we're all geeks, and to be otherwise may very well mean to live without passion. Have a good night.
Night.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Grey Muzzle Geekery with Dusty Red and Dusty White.
You can support our continued geekery at our Patreon website, patreon.com/Grey Muzzle Geekery. Be sure to check back often as we start to add geek cred levels.
You can send your questions and comments to us at greymuzzlegeekery@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at Grey Muzzle Geek.
We can be found on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and Buzzsprout.
And a special thank you to Pepper Coyote for our intro theme. And if you like what you heard, you can find more of his stuff on Spotify, Patreon, or directly from his Bandcamp page.